Hello everyone, and this is my review for TNA Impact Wrestling's Turning Point pay-per-view in 2012. Basically going to go off and say, for the most part, most of the matches on the card were, I thought were maybe not necessarily extremely well done, but they were very good. It was a very good pay-per-view, very enjoyable to watch. Really good matches to watch in there. It was a good way of starting the night with the no disqualification match with Samoa Joe and Magnus. For me personally, I felt the only two real down points of the show were the low points of the show, and they weren't horrible matches, but they were just kind of low points. Was the tag match with Tara and Jesse versus Eric Young and ODB. I felt like it was nothing more than just two comedy acts kind of going together. For me personally, yes, I do realize that comedy acts are definitely needed within wrestling, regardless of whatever company it is. But having two of them at the same time and in the same match kind of doesn't really work out for me, especially with the fact that I feel on the heel side that comedy acts only seem to work with on the heel side if one person is being serious while the other person is being very jokey or jovial with the other at that point. But I don't get that with Jesse and Tara at that point. So that's why I felt like that was a down point. The only other match that I felt was a down point, it was only because, maybe because it's relatively, Joey Ryan's relatively new to Impact Wrestling, but yeah, the match with him and RVD, it didn't come off as bad. It just didn't come off as really that good in my mind. And now, granted, they're trying to push Joey Ryan as quickly as they possibly can after the whole deal with the gut check area and then eventually him facing Al Snow last month. And I do get that. And they're definitely using this Joey Ryan area as a way of pushing Matt Morgan back into Impact Wrestling. And I did like that little aspect at the end of the match where Matt Morgan does attack RVD afterwards. He's trying to prove something to Hulk Hogan, and he's just doing it by, at this point, as of random attacks to the other wrestlers there. But for the most part, outside of those two matches, for the most part, it was all the matches were very enjoyable to watch. They came across off as really well done on television in my mind. I was glad that they ended up letting Doc win the match with him and Joseph Park. But until I liked the little snippets of Joseph Park going away from being Joseph Park, going into Abyss, and then coming back in to his Joseph Park character. Because from my point of view, they kind of lost that whole aspect with the Joseph Park character, is the whole him trying to find Abyss, and eventually it just turning out to be him at some point in time, because of course we all know he is Abyss at this point, but or we all knew from the get-go he was Abyss. So it would definitely be nice if they got back on track with that. They definitely saw that with the commentary and some little snippets, taking back into the past as Joseph Park came in to find Abyss, and eventually, hopefully, we'll see where that goes. Of course, after the match, there was going to be another attack by Doc with a hammer to Joseph Park, but Bully Ray stopped that, and then he helps Joseph Park up. We'll see where that fully goes. If this is just kind of the whole deal where Bully Ray really wants to get at Aces and Eights, or is he's just playing everybody going into an eventual heel turn. But like I said, I was glad that they at least had one area of Aces and Eights win tonight. It definitely keeps their momentum going, and definitely, it just keeps the whole aspect of the Aces and Eights storyline going. And I haven't said this in other videos, but the one other thing I've really liked about Aces and Eights is that they've kept their entrance to being somewhere in the crowd versus them actually having their entrances to the actual entrance ramp. It does keep the whole aspect that, yes, they have full access to the show, but they have their own separate entrance versus where everybody else enters. The tag team match with Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez and Christopher Daniels and Kazarian. Once again, a really good match, very enjoyable to watch. You've seen what these two teams have been doing throughout the entire month to each other, and it culminates into the match itself at the pay-per-view. Very good and enjoyable match to watch. With the exact same thing with the triple threat match there, with AJ Styles, James Storm, and Bobby Roode. Very good back and forth between all three people inside this match, and once again, it's just a very enjoyable, very good triple threat match that came out of this. With of course James Storm becoming the #1 contender, and he pinned AJ Styles. So AJ's not allowed to have a title shot until next year's Bound for Glory. In my mind, this is going to either do one of two things for AJ Styles, because they're kind of at a crossroads with what to do with him, because he can't have a title shot. What do you do with him story-wise? At this point, they can make him turn heel and like attack James Storm or cost him the title next month, or he will become the main event at Bound for Glory, essentially, because the stipulation was they're not allowed to have a title shot until Bound for Glory. So he could end up being the main event now for next year's Bound for Glory. But we'll see where they decide to go with that, and basically what they're going to also do with Bobby Roode here in the future. Nothing really happens to him, so they can insert him in the title matches here and there. They might have something with him and Jeff Hardy after the whole after the whole James Storm shot with whomever, or with basically the Jeff Hardy going into the future here. The Kurt Angle Devon match, I felt came off. It came off pretty well. It wasn't anything too great, but it came off really well as a match, as almost a sub-main event. Obviously, the storyline between Aces and Eights and anybody with the Impact wrestlers has been coming off really good in my mind, and this was just another area. Having him beat Devon and escape from Aces and Eights tonight continues this whole little thing with him and Aces and Eights, and obviously he'll probably be facing Doc or someone else from Aces and Eights in the future. Yeah, basically that's where they're gonna go, is him and Doc probably in the future at next month's pay-per-view or at one of the Impact shows. Now, basically, this brings me to the main event of the night. I did kind of spoil that before. If you haven't watched the pay-per-view, Jeff Hardy did win the match, and what in my mind was a very good ladder match between him and Austin Aries. In my mind, ladder matches can always be hit or miss. This one I felt was more of a hit than a miss in the terms of how ladder matches go. Jeff Hardy usually does put on a good ladder match, and Austin Aries usually puts on good matches, so I felt like this was a very good match in the end between the two of them. They worked well with the ladder. They worked well outside the ring, inside the ring, both with ladders and without the ladders. So I felt like the main event was not the best match of the night. I felt that was the triple threat match, but this was also a very good match in my mind as well. So, like I said, overall the pay-per-view, there was some downtimes, but nothing really too weak, nothing really dragging the pay-per-view down. I felt it was a very good pay-per-view to watch. If anybody who's watching this did spend their money for it, I felt like they would get their money's worth out of this pay-per-view. And yeah, that is my review for TNA Impact Wrestling's Turning Point pay-per-view. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.